Good morning. This is an incredible Monday morning, my Prism mates. I am feeling incredibly energized because in a moment that I didn't expect ever, I actually believe that Donald Trump is torched. The MAGA revolt, the complete meltdown and temper tantrum from a huge chunk of Donald Trump supporters over the sudden reversal by the Trump administration concerning releasing the Jeffrey Epstein files may be the thing that brings down this presidency. And I know people have talked about him being the walls closing in. So many of us believed over the years that would happen. But this is why I think this time is different. Between 20 to 30% of Donald Trump's core base, his most loyal followers, are QAnon subscribers. They are conspiracy theorists. And if you've watched Q Into the Storm or you know anything about this, at the core of their ideology or the conspiracy theory is the notion that there is a cabal of extremely wealthy men who are involved in a child sex ring and that they control the world. Now, there are lots of things to unpack here. And if you think that smacks of some anti Semitic theory, this idea of a cabal of people controlling the world, there is elements of that. So it doesn't hurt their cause that the man in the center of a legitimately accused, let me say it differently, the man in the center of who was convicted once and indicted a second time in connection with the first time it was prostitution, the second time the indictment had to deal with child sex trafficking. It furthers their theory when this man's last name is Epstein, right? And let's just be clear, Jeff Epstein is Jewish. Does that mean that every Jewish person is a pedophile? Of course not. Why would you even say that? Does it mean that all differently that every pedophile is Jewish? Not at all. But what I'm telling you is this is a very demented theory. 20 to 30% of his base believe in it. Not all of them are anti-Semitic, but at the core, again, of the QAnon theories about the world is this idea of a child sex ring. Now, you might remember from back in the day, the so-called Pizzagate, the story about that was being spread about Democrats, this thing that some weird conspiracy claiming that Hillary Clinton was running a child sex ring in the basement of some pizza restaurant in Washington, D.C. You might remember that. And people were so deranged around this that someone actually went in there, came to this restaurant and started shooting people. You might remember that. So this is a long time. We're talking about decades of this craziness building. Now, separate and apart from that, there are a lot of children who are survivors of sex abuse, right? This is a fact. So where does this bring us? Why do I think Donald Trump's reversal last week and his crazy Truth Social posts over the weekend are going to make a difference? I'm going to explain to you, but let's start first with this shape-shifting story. So you might remember, as I said, that this focus on Jeff Epstein was largely actually coming from Republicans who were pandering to this base, this core base in the Trump administration. I mean, core base of Trump supporters. And we have people, let's be clear, everyone from, Pam Bondi and Don Bongino, and even, I'm just trying to think of others, Steve Bannon, you had Don Jr., you had Donald Trump himself. There were so many people saying, release the Epstein files. They're covering things up. Now, what's weird about this is Donald Trump had been Jeff Epstein's best friend This is what Epstein said on tape. Donald Trump even said he was close friends with Epstein for at least 15 years in the 80s and 90s. In an interview with Donald Trump in like 2002, he said that he had known Jeff for 15 years. Well, they hung out together in the 80s and 90s. And at some point, they had a falling out. There are different stories about the falling out. One of them is that they got in a fight over a real estate deal, right? Okay. But they were so close that when he hung out, Donald Trump hung out with Jeff Epstein over the years. Okay, so he's very close with Epstein. Donald Trump actually dated a 20-year-old who later said she was abused and trafficked by Jeff Epstein. So there's that. Okay, dated her when she was 20. Now, all of this is true, and yet, so you would think, okay, because Donald Trump and his team was pointing to Jeff Epstein and saying, oh my God, Bill Clinton spent all this time with Jeff Epstein. There's incriminating information about him and other powerful men, and we're going to expose it. I think it led his followers to believe that Donald Trump, of course, wasn't involved in Epstein's behavior, that he had nothing to do with it. And the minute he found out that Jeff Epstein was a pedophile, then that was when he ended that relationship with him. Now, I want to remind you again, I told you 2002, Donald Trump was interviewed and said he had been that he was close friends with Epstein, that they both liked beautiful women, but Epstein liked them on the younger side. That's around 2002. Epstein ends up spending time in prison. I believe it was around 2008, but he negotiated that sweet deal down in Florida. It was a state prosecution where he was only charged on prostitution charges, not child sexual abuse. He also went into some kind of prison, but was able to either go in on the weekends or leave on the weekends, and there were no real guards there. Later, you might remember, he ends up being reinvestigated in around 2014, and then he ends up getting charged in 2019, put in prison, and dies there, either by suicide or he was killed. No one, there seems to be conspiracy theories around that. So from the dawn of time, pointing to Jeff Epstein and his relationship and his the men around him and the powerful men, whether it is Leon Black or Les Wexner or all these powerful men, the story had always been, I think, from the QAnon world and from the Trump supporters, that Democrats were covering this up because Bill Clinton was implicated, and so were all these other men who run the world. And Donald Trump and people around him were like, we're going to expose it. And so there was always at the heart of this a disconnect. Look, everyone was thinking, well, geez, if Donald Trump back then wanted to focus in his team and the people around him were saying, yeah, we're going to expose the people with Epstein, I think everybody thought, well, of course Donald Trump wasn't involved, because why would he promise to release this stuff? Okay, I mean, that makes some sense. So let me just, show you. I'm going to unpack this for you and, again, explain to you why I think this could be the end of him. Okay, let's play Don Jr. Recently.
That my father could be convicted of 34 crimes, but no one on Epstein's list has even been brought to light. I'm trying to figure out how that's possible, right? But it's almost like they're trying to protect those pedophiles for some reason. I can't imagine why, right?
Why is the FBI protecting the greatest pederast, the largest scale pederast in human history?
Simple, because of who's on that list.
Everyone in politics has a vice that's much worse than alcoholism, is the way that I put it. But we
release the list.
Seriously, we need to release the Epstein list. That is an important thing.
The DOJ may be releasing the list of Jeffrey Epstein's clients. Will that really happen?
It's sitting on my desk right now to review. That's been a directive by President Trump.
In this case, in Epstein's case, it is incredibly disturbing. We have flight logs, we have information, names, that will come out.
I'm not ever going to let this story go because of what I heard from a source about Bill Clinton on a plane with Jeffrey Epstein. I'm not letting it go, ever. Ever.
Are you still talking about Jeffrey Epstein? This guy's been talked about for years. You're asking, we have Texas, we have this, we have all of the things. And are people still talking about this guy, this creep? That is unbelievable.
So that was what was going on last week, that last shot. So remember, over the years, you saw that lineup. Everyone, from Don Jr., J.D. Vance, the current head of the FBI, Kash Patel, the deputy head of the FBI, Don Bongino, you see Pam Bondi there, right? This is what they promised. And the Bondi interview was even when she was attorney general. Then suddenly last week, there was a reversal. I think it was at the beginning of the week, was it July 7th, when the Department of Justice issued like a few-page report, which I have read, saying the case is over. First of all, they stopped pursuing Prince Andrew, that this criminal case was closed now, that they had determined Jeff Epstein had killed himself, that he was not killed, obviously, if he committed suicide, they said, and that they were not going to release any files. And their claim was because it would hurt the innocent victims. That's what they announced. So that was in and of itself a reversal. That happened last week. And MAGA started piling on Pam Bondi, right? This was the end last week where they were like, how could this be? How could Pam Bondi do this? She's awful. Donald, fire her. You might remember this. This kind of happens in the middle of the week. Well, none of that made sense. I mean, people were yelling, about this or screaming on social media that she was the problem. And a lot of us are thinking, Donald Trump could fire Pam Bondi at any time, right? So these orders must be coming from him. Obviously. I mean, you saw him at the press conference when he said, why is everyone talking about Jeff Epstein? That should be over, right? So that was already weird. Because we all know that if Donald Trump wanted the Epstein files released, if they exonerated him in some way, if only Bill Clinton was mentioned, if no one that Donald Trump liked was in there, he would release it. He would say on True Social, Pam, release everything you have. Just don't let the girls' names be shown. And he would say, thank you for your attention to that matter. So it was already weird. Everything was weird. And then over the weekend, the story got even crazier. You may have seen this. This is the first part of a tweet Donald Trump put out. This is the most important part. So he said, this was, I think this came out, I'm trying to think, was it yesterday morning? He said, what's going on with my boys and in some cases gals? They are all going after Attorney General Pam Bondi, who is doing a fantastic job. We're on one team, MAGA, and I don't like what's happening. We have a perfect administration, the talk of the world, and quote unquote selfish people are trying to hurt it, all over a guy who never dies, Jeffrey Epstein. For years, it's Epstein over and over again. Why are we giving publicity to files written by Obama, crooked Hillary, Comey, Brennan, and the losers and criminals of the Biden administration? Okay, guys, what the hell? This came out, and I was like, I'm confused. I just took this screenshot this morning, so I'm trying to show you the most recent data on this. So I'm going to talk first about the ratio and then about the content. So can you look at the bottom here? Do you see where it says 45.1K? That means 45,000 comments on this were made. But it was only retweeted or retruthed 13,000 times. That is known as being ratioed. What does that mean? You want the ratio between people sharing this and people commenting. That's an important thing. The more people, you want more people to share. You want fewer people to comment. Comments below a post you give usually indicate people disagreeing with you. They do, unless you're asking people to vote on something and so on. This is an incredibly embarrassing ratio on his own site. That's the first thing I want to note. Content-wise. Now let's talk about this. It's really weird that he says this comment. First of all, he stands behind Pam Bondi telling people he's going to back her. So that makes it clear that he's backing her. No shockers there. What was weird, though, is all over a guy who never dies, Jeffrey Epstein. A guy who never dies. It almost seems when I read that he wants the guy to be dead, that he maybe ordered his death. That is a lot for me to say. I'm not accusing Donald Trump of having Epstein killed, but that's the kind of language you would use if you had wanted him to die and he kept coming back. Now, he then adds, for years, it's Epstein over and over again. I'd like to ask you, from what we just saw, when he said that, who were the people talking about Epstein over and over again? Sure as hell wasn't the Democrats. So I'm trying to understand, does he have dementia, or is this always his strategy to say, stop talking about that? Everyone's talking about that. It was his team talking about that. So that's weird. Okay, let me add more. The other thing is he's claiming now that these files, the whole Epstein prosecution, apparently was written by Obama, Hillary, and Comey. I'm trying to understand the timeline around this because Epstein was, as you know, it was a Florida case when he was put in prison in 2008, which was well underway, well before Barack Obama. That case was underway well before Barack Obama was elected, first of all. Second of all, in 2014, all this gets reopened. But you might remember that when Jeff Epstein was prosecuted in 2019, Donald Trump was president. And when Jeff Epstein died in prison, Donald Trump was president. So none of this makes a lot of sense. Okay, so this was the beginning of that. I got the full thing here. If you really care to see, you can go back and look at it. It was a really, really deranged. I cut it in half. This is how long this was, right? He is likening the Epstein hoax, apparently, to all these other hoaxes like Russia, and so on. And it goes on and on. He screams in loud caps, let Pam Bondi do her job. The fact that he said is, why are we spending month after month looking at nothing but the same old radical left-inspired documents on Jeffrey Epstein? For someone who did not want us to keep talking about Jeff Epstein. I don't know, he mentions him like 10 times in that one True Social. So for me, I don't know about you, but looking at this gave me whiplash. And part of me, when I looked at this, thought, really? Does he think his base is that stupid? Or are they just going to go, oh, yeah, right. This was do they just have memory loss? Or are they just going to think, yeah, it definitely is the Democrats who brought up this Epstein thing. But no such luck for Donald. I told you about being ratioed, right? Well, first let me just point out Brian Tyler Cohn, before we get to the ratio, he puts this out on the 12th. So this was on Sunday. Okay, so February 21st, the Epstein client list is on Pam Bondi's desk, ready to be reviewed, right? Then July 7th, the Epstein client list does not exist and the case is closed. July 12th, right from his tweet. There is an Epstein file, but it's fake, written by Obama, Crooked Hillary, Comey, and Brennan. That's what they would have us believe. Now, of course, I haven't gotten to the ratio. So you might get this, that this is nuts to blame Democrats when they were the ones talking about Epstein. You also, just like Brian Tyler Cohn, are like, what's going on here? This is ever so shape-shifting. But wait till you see the comments below Donald Trump's True Social from yesterday, right? The 40,000. Trust me, I'm not giving you 40,000. I'm going to give you 3. Let's look at this one. Just so you can see this, for those of you, this is kind of tiny. This is a guy, Dwayne Sykes. 1.1 thousand people shared his comment, and only 731 commented below. So he was not ratioed. He was well supported, and he got 12,000 hearts on it. Okay, what did he say? This is going to cost you so many supporters, I being one of them. I have been to multiple rallies and even was there on J6. This is one of the main things that needs fixed. Our two-tiered system of justice needs to end. We, the people, are tired of it. They can't be charged with child trafficking without there being perpetrators. Alan Dershowitz, who was accused of being one of them, has seen the list when he went to defend himself. Okay, so that's one. Okay, let's go to another. This one's from Rosie0226. And 1.44 thousand people shared it and 13,000 liked it. This statement, again, this is right below Donald Trump's statement from yesterday. This statement breaks my heart, Mr. President. I have 4 daughters and live in Texas, where families lost little children. I can't even begin to comprehend the flipped narrative that, quote, it was so long ago, end quote. Why are we talking about this? And nobody should care. These victims were someone's daughters, sisters, nieces, granddaughter, someone's child. Please consider, sir, I voted for everything you are doing. Accountability was not something negotiable. I, my family, and those we convinced to give you a chance are all counting on you to bring sick perversion to account. Otherwise, it will continue to happen. If we are not the voice of the victims, then who? Respectfully, and then with much gratitude for all the promises you keep, please let this one be one as well. I just want to speak to this. I agree with her on this. I agree that it's outrageous that there were apparently over 1,000 victims of Jeff Epstein, that Ghislaine Maxwell is in prison, that there were all these enablers. I mean, the fact that they charged Sean Puffy Combs with RICO, etc. I know that did not stick, but the idea that they couldn't charge, and they tried to say it was a RICO enterprise, that they did not try to call Jeff Epstein's enterprise a RICO enterprise. There is so much that could have gone down here. There are obviously people who conspired to commit child sex trafficking that could have been charged along with Ghislaine. And this woman isn't believing it. And we're not valuing. This is, if you think about this, one of the biggest things the Republican Party has been focused on is protecting young girls and women from having anyone in their bathroom who might assault them. Yet there aren't trans women assaulting people. Right in the front of us is this case, and no one is caring to bring it. Now, there's another. Here's my third one. All due respect, Mr. President. This is from Rat Dog. All due respect, Mr. President. We voted for change, and a big part of that change was for transparency and accountability. I'm just, I'm not cherry picking. These were like right at the top, right below his True Social comment. So that's happening. Now, beyond that, Mike Flynn, who the National Security Advisor, who should never have been hired, who is also Looney Tunes and big part of QAnon, is obviously has a lot of followers. And if we're talking about Trump supporters, 20 to 30% being QAnon, right? If we're saying that, and over 70,000 people, let's just say that of the 70-odd thousand people, 77 that voted for him, let's imagine that of them, like, even if we said 60,000 were his base and 30% would be, 60 million were his base, I'm sorry. That would mean 30% would be 20 million. If we cut that in half, like 10 million, cut that in half, 5 million, cut that, even if there's 1 million people, 5 million people who are fed up with him unless he releases that is huge. Okay, let me share this with you. This is what Mike Flynn had to say, right? Okay, this is Mike Flynn yesterday. Real Donald Trump, please understand. And he, by the way, I think this was over on Twitter, not True Social. So this is over on Twitter. Real Donald Trump, please understand. The Epstein affair is not going away. If the administration doesn't address the massive number of unanswered questions about Epstein, especially the abuse of children by elites, it is very clear that abuse occurred. Then moving forward on so many other monumental challenges our nation is facing becomes much harder. Trust was deeply violated by both Joe Biden and Barack Obama that your administration must be above reproach. Okay, so I got more to read on this, but hold on one sec. So what he's saying here is he's accusing Obama and Biden of not releasing the file. So he is not buying the story Donald Trump is trying to spin out, that this whole thing was an invention of Democrats. Instead, Flynn is saying it's a cover-up by them. But what he said next is shocking. Okay, this part, I don't know if you saw this. He writes at the bottom, and this to me is like a veiled assassination threat. And never forget, quote, anyone who causes the little ones to stumble, it would be better to have a millstone hung around their neck and to be drowned in the depths of the sea. That was a quote. And apparently he was quoting Glenn Beck. I'm just reporting, not endorsing that. This is how serious this is in MAGA world. It is so serious that there is reporting that from credible sources, I think one reporter from the Rolling Stone and others, that the Trump team, the Trump administration, is making phone calls to the popular pro-Trump YouTubers and bloggers and even regular television networks saying, back off the Epstein story or you will lose access. Well, they don't have to say that to the people who are the most loyal. So you're seeing the most extreme loyalists around Donald Trump saying, you know what, let's not get distracted, let's move on. Okay, so some of them seem to be saying that. However, oh shit, sorry. Michael, my adorable husband, said that Glenn Beck was quoting Jesus Christ. Michael, you need to do a little more research and tell me what part of the Christian Bible that came from. Thank you, honey. By the way, I want to say yesterday was my Michael and my anniversary. 20 years since our first date, and we decided to make our wedding day on the same day so we don't have to remember. So happy anniversary, sweetie. Mwah. Also, today is July 14th, Bastille Day. I'm not suggesting that we storm any fortress and start taking out the guillotine or the guillotine. But I want to say I always remember Bastille Day because my mother, Shelley Goodman Taub, this was her birthday. And this is my first Bastille Day without her in my life. Okay. Returning to this topic. It ain't going away, right? Let's talk about what's going on Fox News, because I showed you what was going on social media. Let's play Fox News. They called this a ticking time bomb. I love it.
Lots of questions that have been swirling about Jeffrey Epstein for a long time, for over 10 years, and the government's involvement in it. If there's anybody who could walk in and say, okay, we've resolved all of the questions and there is nothing here, it would be President Trump and his crew. The problem is you can't really do it without giving some explanation, and there has to be some explanation, and I think that's why you have a lot of people still pretty with a lot of very valid questions about it.
You absolutely nailed it. You can defuse this ticking time bomb if you simply get out there, sit down, the AG, get the deputy director, and get the director himself. Put them in front of cameras, have them make a statement, and have them answer questions. We're only talking about 5 or 10 questions. But what this will do is, first of all, restores confidence. Number 2, it answers some of the basics, especially the simple things like, you can't tell me that 1,000 people were hurt and that there are no people out there that we can arrest. You can't tell me that, oh, sorry, we don't have a list. Fine, don't have a list. Tell me who the perpetrators were. Let's depose every single person who might have had a chance to get on that list and might have been out there at that island, and let's talk to them. Let's find out what happened. You're telling me other videos out there in New Mexico and in the island and in New York, and nobody saw anything? I don't buy it, and that's why they need to get out there and face the fire. Doesn't have to be long. But you have to answer questions to the American people, because absent that, this story won't die, and that's a distraction the president doesn't want.
Of course, and in that True Social that he put out, he talked about all his accomplishments.
Yeah.
And he's saying, why let's not let this overcome. And I think he doesn't want that. I think his supporters don't want that. And I think that's why they want just some simple answers.
Yeah. And of course, he's right about that. I mean,
Guys, this doesn't look like it's going away. So let's add to this. Oh, by the way, update. Thank you, Deb. Thank you, everyone. Thank you, Michael. It is from Matthew 8:6. And I'm going to read that passage to you. Oh my God, Bjorn, thank you for the super sticker, guys. Let me say, I am so grateful. We have over 9,200 subscribers. Remember, it's free to subscribe. Just click subscribe. You can also become one of these fans, and there's different levels. I think something's called, Deb, Deb, help me out. Deb, Jason, and AJ, help me out on this. I don't know the names. They're funny, cute little names for different levels. But anyway, I want to thank everyone for all their support. And by the way, we have to have a big members only, another one of these YouTube meetings. I'm going to set that up because that was so fun when we got to talk with each other. Okay, great. So Matthew 18:6, this is what Mike Flynn, QAnon king himself, part of the MAGA base that's demanding accountability and transparency. Here is what I said was a veiled assassination threat, but maybe it wasn't. I don't know. So from the Bible, but whoever causes one of these, I'm reading from my phone, whoever causes one of these little ones to stumble and sin by leading him away from my teaching, it would be better for him to have a heavy millstone as large as one turned by a donkey hung around his neck and to be drowned in the depth of the sea. Michael Flynn ain't messing around. This is deeply biblical for these folks. This is at the core of their values, and it's very complicated. This doesn't go away. Now, what are the Democrats doing about this? I would like to first let you know that Ro Khanna from California, from the House of Representatives, said this yesterday. Why are the Epstein files still... Oh, right. Kissy Cat. Flynn was pardoned. Yes, he was. Why involved in the whole Russia investigation? Yes, he was. Why are the Epstein files still hidden? Who are the rich and powerful being protected? On Tuesday, that means tomorrow, I'm introducing an amendment to force a vote. Thank you, Susan. To force a vote demanding the full Epstein files be released to the public. The speaker must call a vote and put every Congress member on record. Guys, this is huge. Well, I don't know. So Ro Khanna, again, he's in the House. I'm not sure what he's talking about when he says an amendment. There must be some legislation they're looking at right now. So I don't know the full procedure of how he's doing this. But whatever he is doing, he is going to use his power to force a vote. Now, we've seen this happen before. He's going to need the support of the other Democrats and Republicans to make this happen. Thank you, Electron Creations, for your super sticker. You guys are so nice to me. Okay, so that's happening. That's Ro Khanna. I want you to hear from Jamie Raskin about this. He went through this on the Sunday shows, and I think you should listen to what he is saying as well.
The deep state is mega parlance, essentially, for anybody who doesn't follow orders from Donald Trump. I mean, they have sacked dozens of experienced federal criminal prosecutors simply because they did their jobs in working on the January 6th case, the January 6th investigation and prosecution. And of course, Donald Trump pardoned more than 1,500 convicted insurrectionists and rioters who assaulted federal police officers and engaged in other crimes. There were 140 of our officers who were wounded, injured, disfigured, permanently disabled by this attack. And the January 6th Select Committee report lays it all out. They've not laid a glove on a single factual statement in the entire report. And yet, I suppose this is what they're calling the deep state, or part of the deep state. And that really is just in the realm of conspiracy theory and fiction. And I'd love to debate any of them about any part of the findings of the January 6th Select Committee report. But on the question of child sex abuse, look, you could say that we've got an epidemic of this across society. We've got it in schools. We've got it in universities. We saw it at Ohio State. We saw it at Michigan State. We saw it in the Boy Scouts. It's affected a lot of different religious organizations and churches. And so by covering up, they are just reproducing and spreading the conspiracy theory and the anxiety about why this is happening. But you don't have to blame some shadowy deep state. Donald Trump and Pam Bondi are the ones who've got the power to release the Epstein files. So they're the closest thing we've got to the deep state right now, and they should go ahead and release all of the Epstein files and put an end to this.
Absolutely. I don't know if it was Jamie or others who said we need hearings. Julia Cooper, thank you. Welcome back from your vacation. And Ghostly Air, you seem like a new name. Thank you so much, both of you. I'm just grateful. Okay, so this is happening right now. And this is, what you've seen is some of the responses, right? I showed you Ro Khanna saying he wants an amendment on Tuesday on this. You see Jamie Raskin saying this is a real problem. And I think there are other efforts to have hearings on this cover up, right? So let's keep moving on this. And what I want to say, and by the way, Joy Hines said, I'm sure some Dems are sweating. Good. If Bill Clinton or others are in there, so what? I got to tell you, as myself, so many others, as a victim of sexual assault, as I think an 18-year-old, so not as a child, but still, I don't care what political party that person was from. What difference does that make? Victims are victims, and the accountability has to be across the board. Now let's play John Ossoff. Senator from Georgia, nailed it with this.
President Trump promised to end the wars. He promised to release the Epstein files. Did anyone really think the sexual predator president who used to party with Jeffrey Epstein was going to release the Epstein files?
Well, says it all. Now, before I move on to another topic, you might say, is this what their limit is? They don't care about any of the other stuff? And why should we, as Democrats, hammer on this instead of the other ways in which Donald Trump is harming the public? Well, first of all, there's more than one way to speak and use your voice. But the reason why I think this is critical is this. You know how the only way to elect somebody or kick someone out of office is to go to the voting booth? The act of voting is not the same thing as speaking about someone's problems. If you don't pull that lever, if you don't vote for what you want, if you cannot throw out, if you don't go vote, we don't throw someone out of office. Well, at this point, this is the equivalent to voting. In other words, if you want Donald Trump to be removed from the levers of power, and you knew that this is the button you had to press continually to get rid of him, this is the button we have to press. Not only that, it actually helps victims. So I think we can all get behind this. Now, so I wonder to myself, why is this the thing that may break MAGA? And it's not just, I think, because 20 to 30% of MAGA is really obsessed with this topic. I also think it is that Donald Trump, as you know, I have my whiteboard here of all the things he promised. Donald Trump made promises that I thought would help all people, and he made promises that I thought would be very harmful, right? Donald Trump has fulfilled his harmful promises. The same people who really want to see the Epstein files are, for the large part, also against having immigrants in the US, right? So this is complicated here. And I'm not saying that someone who does not share my core beliefs is someone I have to make my friend. But if it just so happens that the thing they are upset about is something that I am also upset about, and that could be the thing that would bring down the Trump regime, hell yes. This is time. It'll be foolish not to keep talking about Epstein. Now, I've got more. Let us now shift for a moment to the most terrible thing the Trump administration is doing right now, in which we have to stop, for which we have to not allow the budget to be funded, right, through appropriations. This whole giving him $175 billion for this massive crackdown on immigrants, this massive deportation project that is really ugly when people actually see it happening in their neighborhoods. I want to share with you what happened, something good at the end of last week. Remember on Friday, I showed you photos of the raids in Oxnard, California. That was, I think, a tomato farm and then a cannabis farm and another part of California, both in Ventura County. And some terrible things and some good things resulted from that. One terrible thing is a man who was running to escape ICE fell off the roof of a greenhouse 30 feet and died. Another terrible thing is that people, hundreds of people, I think from there, they've been taken away and their relatives don't know that where they are. This includes at least one U.S. citizen, a professor who was there during the ICE raid at one of the farms. And there was a disabled person who wasn't able to respond to ICE commands. And this professor went to try to help him. And now he has been taken away and no one knows where he is. Those are terrible things. The good thing is this. A federal judge ruled that the policy that Homeland Security and ICE had articulated, something that Tom Homan had articulated, that they're just going to, if they see someone who looks like they might be, it meets the profile, let's put it this way. So someone who's speaking Spanish or essentially looks Hispanic, what does that mean? Brown, okay, that they can stop them. And what a judge ruled on Friday is no way. No. The standard for ICE before they make a stop is reasonable suspicion. This is the Constitution at play. And let's hear the comments that we got on this from Republicans acting as if they have never heard of the Constitution. And let me tell you, if we have a world where members of law enforcement can stop anyone without reasonable suspicion, that is a world where we don't have any rights. Let me play this for you.
Is you got to have a reasonable suspicion before you arrest somebody, before ICE can take people into custody. Your reaction?
Well, this is another time where the judge has kind of gotten this wrong for political reasons. And this judge is trying to also issue a national injunction again. I mean, that's what you're seeing. That's the intent of this, to try to freeze this. But they don't do anything about the attacks on the ICE and the CBP agents trying to do their job. Here's the deal. ICE and CBP, they're going to places where they know and have information. They actually do have a reasonable suspicion that somebody is there who is a criminal illegal alien. And when they get there, they find additional people that they believe to be illegal aliens as well. And when that happens, it becomes the so-called raid, and then you see the reaction. The judges here...
So, no, this is not how it works. Someone is in New York City who committed a crime. Now we can just stop everybody there. Come on, guys. We know that's not what the law is. Okay, so I have got some more for you on this topic. Let me just go ahead. Actually, you know what? Yeah. I'm going to switch right now to the topic of, speaking of not caring about children, the floods in Texas. And you might have heard the New York Times reported over the weekend that the call center on like the first day after the flood, like on the maybe July 4th and 5th, it was answering like 90+% of the calls. And then the following day, I think on the 8th, close to 18%. And there were accusations in the New York Times that was because the contract had lapsed at that point. Kristi Noem, Secretary Noem, is arguing that is fake news. Let's listen to what she had to say with Kristen Welker.
Just a moment, but the New York Times is reporting that thousands of calls from flood victims to FEMA call centers went unanswered in the middle of this ongoing disaster because you didn't renew contracts to keep call center staff in place until nearly 1 week after the floods. Why did it take so long to extend those contracts?
It's just false. Those contracts were in place. Nobody,
it didn't take 5 days?
No employees were off of work. Every one of them was answering calls. So false reporting, fake news, and it's discouraging. It's discouraging that during this time when we have such a loss of life and so many people's lives have turned upside down, that people are playing politics with this because the response time was immediate. And if you talk to anyone in Texas that was there, that was a part of this operation, they would say the federal government and President Trump immediately responded.
Just to be very clear, on July 7th, 15.9% of calls were answered. I mean, does that concern you that only 15% of calls were answered? These are people in a desperate state. FEMA, often the first call that they make, only 15% were answered on July 7th, several days after the floods.
These contracts were in place and those people were in those call centers and they were picking up the phone and...
Okay, she didn't answer. If Welker says about 15.9, let's round it up, 16% of the calls being answered. All Noem says is the contracts were in place and people were in the call centers answering calls. I think if you've done any work in telemarketing, that call centers are hired by many different organizations to, call centers exist whether or not the U.S. government has a contract with them, right? Some call centers are taking inbound calls for, your telephone or your cable service, or if you have a question about a product. Call centers can be used as contractors, as independent contractors, ready businesses. But you might also know is when you have a contract with a call center, you absolutely have a response time or a certain kind of staffing. She said the contracts were in place, but was there were we paying for the kind of staffing and response time that was necessary? Had it lapsed? And when it lapsed, the way the contract works is they only pick up the call if they're not doing anything else. This does not smell truthful to me at all. Let's keep playing.
Answering these calls from these individuals. So that report needs to be validified. I'm not certain it's accurate, and
that report needs to be validified. Last time I checked, the word she would be searching for would be validated. You validate something, a report needs to be validated. Validified, never heard of it. It reminds me of vilified, validified, or that medicine that gave children birth defects. What was it called? Anyhow, validified is not a word. Let's go. More on this.
I'm not sure where it came from, and the individuals who are giving you information out of FEMA, I'd love to have them put their names behind it, because the anonymous attacks to politicize the situation is completely wrong. These emergencies need to be conducted exactly how President Trump handled this one. It was that the local responders are the ones who execute the response. The state comes in and manages it, and then the federal government comes in and supports.
That's never been how it works. Never. Okay. Bye-bye, Kristi. Let's now listen to Donald Trump freaking out.
Yes, News Texas. Several families we've heard from are obviously upset because they say that those...
Okay, I'm sorry. Let me just be clear because I didn't do a great transition. Donald Trump was at a press conference because people, not only are they upset about Epstein, but they're also upset about the federal response in Texas. And so you're going to hear Donald Trump's go-to phrase whenever you talk about something he doesn't want you to talk about is that you're selfish. Let's play this.
Here with CBS News Texas, several families we've heard from are obviously upset because they say that those warnings, those alerts didn't go out in time, and they also say that people could have been saved. What do you say to those families?
Well, I think everyone did an incredible job under the circumstances. This was, I guess Christie said, a 1 in 500, 1 in 1,000 years. And I just have admiration for the job that everybody did. There was just admiration. Only a bad person would ask a question like that, to be honest with you. I don't know who you are, but only a very evil person would ask a question like that. I think this has been...
Only an evil person would ask, what do you have to say to the families who lost their children? Again, he's in his DARVO. Remember DARVO? D-A-R-V-O. Deny, attack, reverse victim, and offender. Denying that they weren't responsive, attacking the families, essentially because she was speaking for the families, and make himself the victim.
Heroism. This has been incredible, really, the job you've all done. It's easy to sit back and say, oh, what could have happened here?
Okay, so you see that. Now, I got a few more things for you before we get to Crazy Town. So one thing that's been, as you know, upsetting us incredibly is what is happening in that Everglades detention center. And so Congresswoman Debbie Wasserman Schultz was actually allowed into that space. I don't like to use the name Alligator Alcatraz because I think it minimizes what is going on there in that concentration camp. And so she was allowed in. And imagine they showed her probably the best they could offer. And here's what she had to say.
Let's be clear, throughout this entire tour, it was repeated over and over that the state is working hand in glove with ICE. This facility was inspected by ICE. They review their detention standards. They are using cages. These detainees are living in cages. The pictures that you've seen don't do it justice. They are essentially packed into cages, wall-to-wall humans, 32 detainees per cage. That is the only thing inside those cages are their bunk beds, and there are 3 tiny toilets that are toilet units that have a sink attached to it. So they essentially drink, they get their drinking water and they brush their teeth, where they poop in the same unit. They bragged that they went above standards, supposedly, and gave them a 3-foot privacy wall that stretches the length inside the 32 detainee cage, a 3-foot privacy wall that stretches the length of the 3 toilets in a row. The showers provide no privacy at all. There are no curtains on it. It's a big open shower unit. There are, small walls in each shower, but we're talking about all 900 men who are held in this facility. It is built currently for 1,000, and they have no privacy at all when they're showering. For meals, when we walked through the quote-unquote meal prep area, the kitchen area, for lack of a better term, they had the portions that were available for detainees, and they had the portions that were available for employees being prepared at the same time. The portions available for employees, large pieces of roast chicken, large sausages, and the detainees' lunches were a small, gray turkey and cheese sandwich, an apple, and chips, and that's it. We're talking about fully grown men being fed very small portions. When I asked,
okay, so you get that, right? Let me also share with you Tom Homan, when he was asked about the death of the man at that ICE raid.
So let's talk through ICE, because that's obviously the other big story that's under your purview as well. So a federal judge issued a
I'm sorry, I shared the wrong video with you about the man who died at the ICE raid. So I am going to just let you know that he just said, well, it's a shame when anyone died, but we didn't want that to happen. Okay, I got a couple more things for you before we get to Crazy Town. We've talked about law. Let's talk about money. Donald Trump, as you know, has been absolutely a maniac and inconsistent around what tariffs should be. And so Hassert was asked, what do you think of what's going on with these tariffs? And he bombed. Let's play it.
Well, as you know, a lot of economists say that the inflation will be coming, and that there were certainly a lot of imports that were brought in the anticipation that tariffs would be placed. But let me ask you about one new set of tariffs that he announced on Brazil. 50% new tariff on Brazil. Brazil had a $6.8 billion surplus last year. In fact, the U.S. hasn't had a trade deficit with Brazil since 2007. I mean, almost 2 decades. So why are we putting a punishing 50% tariff on Brazil?
Well, bottom line is the president has been very frustrated with negotiations with Brazil and also with the actions of Brazil. In the end, though, we're trying to put America first. I think that a lot of people, when I'm talking to negotiators from other countries, at some point they'll say, what did we do wrong? And what I'm trying to get, the message we're all trying to get across is this is about America getting itself ready for the golden age by getting our house in order, by getting our tariff and trade policy and tax policy exactly where it needs to be for a golden age. And normally it's not necessarily about a specific country, but with Brazil it is. Their actions have shocked the president at times, and he's made them clear about that.
But I don't understand how you're saying it's about America, because the president has made it quite clear that what he's upset about is how the Brazilian Supreme Court has handled the criminal case involving former President Bolsonaro.
I'm agreeing with you. What I'm saying is that what I've been saying with most countries was that it's really about us getting the tariffs in order. And I think that this tariff for Brazil is a lot higher because of the president's frustration
Jonathan
with
Carl.
Bolsonaro. And the fact that Bolsonaro himself, anyway.
Okay. This is so funny. So we've got Jonathan Carl on ABC trying to get Dennis Hassert of the National Economic Council, so he works for Donald Trump, to own up to the bullshit. I don't want to talk over it, so let's just play that last part again.
Because of the president's frustration with Bolsonaro. And the fact that Bolsonaro himself, anyway.
But can you explain to me, because I find it confusing here, on what authority does the president have to impose tariffs on a country because he doesn't like what that country's judicial system is handling a specific case?
Well,
I mean, how is that?
If he thinks it's a national defense emergency, or if he thinks it's a national security threat, that he has the authority under IEPA.
So how is it a national security threat that, how Brazil is handling a criminal case against its former president?
Well, that's not the only thing. I mean,
so what is it? I mean, I've asked what it is. I mean, it seems that that's what President Trump's talking about. He's talking about his anger and his frustration. He's been quite candid about it with the Bolsonaro case.
Right. Well, the bottom line is that what we're doing absolutely collectively across every country is we're onshoring production in the U.S. to reduce the national emergency that is that we have a massive trade deficit that's putting it at risk should we need production in the U.S. because of a national security crisis. And this is part of an overall strategy to do that.
But again, as we've just established, we have a trade surplus with Brazil, not a deficit. And we've had a surplus with Brazil for 18 years.
Jonathan Carl, that is how it is done. And now, my friends, it is time for Crazy Town. Before I say that, thank you to the Mod Squad. I love you guys. Jason, Deb, and AJ, we could not do this without you. Oops. Okay. It is time for Crazy Town. So, my friends, today, Crazy Town is Donald Trump trying to do damage control. He believe it or not, decided to go on television with Lara Trump, his daughter-in-law. And he ended up somehow, I think it was Saturday night. So his tweet was Saturday, not Sunday. But so after his Truth Social debacle, he wants to clean things up. He goes on to Fox News with Lara Trump. Doesn't talk about Epstein, talks about everything else. And unfortunately for him, the way they had the seating done, it looked like they were directly across from each other. But in fact, she was closer to the camera. And she's very tall and was wearing high heels. So she looks like she's like huge. And he's this tiny, hulking gnome. So that's not going to be good for him. He hates visuals like that. But the crazy town thing is this. Lara Trump asked him about his legacy. And this is what he said. This is crazy as hell. Let me play it for you.
Talking about people not remembering, I don't think anyone will ever forget President Donald J. Trump. But when history looks back on this time in our country, when history looks back on you, how would you like to be remembered?
A good person, but a person that saved our country. I really believed our country was going down for the fall. I don't know if it ever could have come back.
You're talking about people not remembering. I don't think anyone will ever forget President Donald J. Trump. But when history looks back on this time in our country, when history looks back on you, how would you like to be remembered?
A good person, but a person that saved our country. I really believed our country was going down for the fall. I don't know if it ever could.
Okay, a good person, but a person who saved this country. I want you to also see what I'm talking about here. He looks like he's sitting on a toilet. Crazy time. Let's look into the whole quote. I mean, a good person and a person who saved this country. Crazy.
Person that saved our country. I really believed our country was going down for the fall. I don't know if it ever could have come back. It was very close to the edge.
What?
And I really would like to be known as the man that saved our country.
Well, I think you've started off on the right track there.
So far.
It doesn't make any sense. The Biden administration did an incredibly strong economy. The man just says whatever. What a lunatic. And I assure you, he will not be remembered for being a good man or for saving this country, unless he inadvertently saved this country by leaving. Go somewhere else, sir. And with that, I bid you guys adieu. Thank you for joining me, and I will see you in the morning.
Hello, prison mates. It's the Jen Taub Show, where welcome everyone. Let's learn about what is happening in politics yesterday and today. There is hope, and we are together in this democracy we work for. And again, welcome to the Jen Taub Show. Hello, prison mates. It's the Jen Taub Show, where welcome everyone. Let's learn about what is happening in politics yesterday and today. There is hope, and we are together in this democracy we work for. And again, welcome to the Jen Taub Show.